Good evening, everyone. Excited that you all have decided to join us for the Getting to Know Fraternity Sorority Life webinar as a part of the Getting to Know Michigan webinar series. I want to take an opportunity to introduce our panelists who will be joining us here, all from the Fraternity Sorority Life office. I'm Travis Martin. I use he, him pronouns, and I have the pleasure and privilege of serving as Associate Dean of Students and Director of Fraternity Sorority Life, and I'll allow my colleagues to also quickly introduce themselves as well.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shannon Benson. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as the Associate Director of Fraternity and Sorority Life and the Panhellenic Advisor.
Good evening, all. My name is Christy Philipchuk. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Assistant Director of Organization Conduct here within Fraternity and Sorority Life.
Excellent. So we'll spend some time going over the goals we hope to achieve in our presentation here today. And so we certainly, again, want to welcome you today to our webinar, and we'll go briefly over some information. But what we hope to get, you will get out of this presentation is at least for us to introduce you to the University of Michigan fraternity sorority community and talk a little bit about why we exist. We certainly want to highlight some resources, programs, and services that are available through our office, including our website, in which we have also linked here, and you'll see it throughout the presentation today. We also want to highlight some community standards and then highlight some differences between affiliated and disaffiliated organizations. We'll talk a little bit about that later. We want to highlight some upcoming key dates and talk about why you should join a fraternity and sorority here at the University of Michigan, and then certainly answer some questions that you might have for us. So next, I want to talk a little bit about who we are and why we exist, right? So the Fraternity Sorority Life office is fortunate to be made up of several staff persons, even more so than who is on the call here today. We have normally at our full capacity about 9 full-time professional staff persons that make up the Fraternity Sorority Life office. We're currently at about 7. We do have 2 vacancies of our full-time staff position in which we're hoping to fill at some point soon. And then we do have, not pictured here as well, 4 graduate students who also support our fraternity sorority community. And we also have opportunities for student employment. So undergraduate students also work to support the Fraternity Sorority Life operations, particularly mostly our building, which is at 1443 Washtenaw Avenue, just off the University of Michigan campus. And so really what we do as a staff is to really support the students, roughly 5,000 to 6,000 students at any given moment that make up the fraternity sorority community across our different chapters. And so we advise them, we program for them, particularly around areas around risk management, of course, recruitment, as well as support the groups around organizational leadership, as well as accountability. And so those are some of the main things we do, in addition to a lot of other things we do to support the fraternity sorority community. We also partner a lot with advisors, alumni, also in helping us to also support this experience for the University of Michigan students. So I want to spend just a brief moment, and so don't worry, I'll be very brief in talking about just the history of fraternity sorority life. We think it's important, right? And we're kind of proud of our history here at the University of Michigan. So at Michigan, fraternity sororities began as early as 1845, right? That was a long time ago. And so it started with 2 national fraternities. We saw several years later, right, in 1879, our first sorority was chartered on campus, creating space for women to be and find community at the University of Michigan. And then in 1909, we saw our first traditionally African-American fraternity be chartered here at the University of Michigan, also creating opportunity and space for African-American students at the time to develop community as well. And then since 1909, we have seen a growth of various different fraternities and sororities that celebrate the heritage of various different cultural ethnic identities also be formed. And so 2020, the year 2020, we celebrated 175 years of fraternity and sororities at the University of Michigan. And so I think this really speaks to the evolution of fraternities and sororities at the University of Michigan since 1845. And hopefully you'll see later in the presentation as we talk about really fraternity and sororities really being a space for a lot of different students. And so I know oftentimes we think of fraternity and sororities in very singular context, but fraternity and sorority life is a very diverse group of students. And there's a space, I believe, for any students who might choose to maybe look at this experience as a way to find belonging at the University of Michigan. So with that, I want to highlight our 4 councils. I talked about the evolution of fraternity sororities. Today, we have over 52 chapters, right, that make up 4 governing councils. And so our Interfraternity Council, which is our historically white fraternities at the University of Michigan, and you'll hear me use language such as historically white, historically African-American, et cetera. But all of our fraternities and sororities are, generally are welcomely to students across the board, right? But you will hear me talk about historically, they were founded historically serving a majority, and in some cases, predominantly today, various different ethnic and cultural identities, right? So IFC is made up of our historically white fraternities, and the Multicultural Greek Council, which, as I talked about earlier, are one of our younger cultural Greek councils that serve various different cultural and ethnic identities of both fraternities and sororities. Then we have the National Pan-Hellenic Council, which serves our traditionally historically African-American fraternities and sororities. And then the Panhellenic Association, which is our historically white sorority council. So you have 2 councils that are primarily serving fraternities and sororities or gendered women organization or historically men's organizations. And then MGC and NPHC both serves both fraternities and sororities, so historically women and men organizations. So really briefly, community statistics. I talked about us having 51 as of March 2022, 51 different chapters that fall within one of those 4 governing councils that I mentioned earlier. As of March, we had just under 5,000 undergraduate students that made up the fraternity sorority community, which is about 16% of our total undergraduate population. And so as you see, certainly a large number of our students are not affiliated, but we have a significant amount of students who find that fraternities and sororities can create a space of belonging for them at the University of Michigan. So, and if you break that statistics down in terms of the percentage affiliated, about 22% of our women at the University of Michigan are affiliated, and about 9.5, a little over 9.5% of our men identified students choose to affiliate with the University of Michigan. We don't have data, of course, and we want to certainly honor that there might be individuals that are gender nonconforming, and we don't necessarily track that data, but certainly we do, I would imagine, have some students who are gender nonconforming that are also affiliated with our community. So the 4 councils, I want to break up statistics to talk about our 4 governing councils. Our IFC, as I mentioned earlier, has 16 of those 51 chapters, about 1,300 or a little under 1,400 members. The average chapter size for IFC is about 86 students. And all of our 16 IFC chapters have recognized chapter housing facilities. Then we have our Multicultural Greek Council, which is made up of 12 of those 51 chapters, about 178 students. So the average chapter size is about 15. These organizations tend to be smaller in nature. So, but some of the highlights of it is that these chapter members really do get to know each other and understand and find community, of course, in a different way, right? So our NPHC, our National Pan-Hellenic Council, has a total of 6 chapters, a total of 63 members. So our average chapter size of about 11 students on our campus. And then last and not least, our Panhellenic Association is made up of 17 chapters of those 51 organizations that I mentioned earlier, and certainly is our largest student body within the fraternity sorority community, as a total membership of about 3,300 students. And then the average chapter size is 196, so very large organizations. And then all 16 of our 17 Pan-Hellenic sororities have recognized chapter housing facilities. And so lastly, before I hand it over to the colleagues, wanted to talk a little bit about the role of the Fsl Department. And I mentioned a little bit about what the staff does, but this next slide will give you a visual about how we work in partnership with various entities to support and govern the fraternity sorority community here at Michigan, right? So as you can see, the university, of course, supervises the Fraternity Sorority Life office, which we, as the staff persons who are here, make up the Fraternity Sorority Life office. The Fraternity Sorority Life office then oversees our 4 governing councils, and our 4 governing councils really govern our chapters. And then you see over to the left here, our international and national organizations, which all of our 51 organizations that I mentioned, chapters that I mentioned earlier, are subunits of a larger national organization. We work very closely with the staffing and volunteering for those national organizations. And so we partner with them to also help oversee the individual chapters as well. So that kind of gives you a visual around the role of our office in supporting students in chapters who are affiliated with the University of Michigan. So I'll hand it over to my colleague, Christy Philipchuk, who will talk a little bit about community standards and what that means for the fraternity sorority community.
Thank you, Travis. So as we've gone through all of our chapters, we want to make it clear that it's a commitment of values-based communities that you would be joining. So as students who are interested in this, we want to make sure you're ready to commit to similar values that are based in, first of all, social. So Fraternity and Sorority Life advises all of our social fraternities and sororities on campus. We do not advise academic, different, like Ross has some business organizations, the dental organization. So we want to be clear there too, that these are our social organizations and cultural organizations, some of them. Then values that are based in professional development, scholastics, service, and philanthropy. All of our chapters find core values in that. And you as an individual that are looking to join should be interested in putting in the work in those areas and finding growth in those areas. Beyond individual growth, we also look at chapter growth. So how can we as an office help give some expectations for both the individual students, the student leaders within the community made, and our office help support it. So we're really dedicated to upholding our values and principles for our chapters, which we do in an achievement expectations-based program. That means that our chapters work on unity, academic success, human dignity. You can read there, but responsible behavior, service, philanthropy, accountability, integrity, and lifelong commitment. Those are the important pieces that we think make our community more vibrant. We expect it from the individuals and we expect it from the chapters. Now we're here as an office, and Travis spoke on it a little bit, but what's the benefit of being a chapter that's affiliated with our institution? And so we are able to truly create learning opportunities and connection with our community by having you be part of our umbrella and be affiliated with the University of Michigan. This includes having the opportunity to self-govern yourselves as a group. So our student leaders are the ones that hold each other accountable, who hold mediations and really work to get through tough times and tough issues to address the harm and repair the harm and to be a better community on the other end. So that's one of the great opportunities where we just help that happen. Then we allow a lot of participation for leadership programs and service, and we help facilitate that. We make connections, right? We're here every year where our students go through the rotation every 4. We provide some consistency and stability there. And then also what we provide is connection with other campus partners and Ann Arbor city partners. So we have connections for the police department or other, the fire department, things like that, right? These chapters have houses, and so they need those support services at times, and we really help create that bridge and offer that. Now, to become a member in our community, though, we do have kind of some expectations, as I said earlier. Besides the interest in those values, we also have things called institutional eligibility requirements. And so for you to be able to become a member, and for us to believe we give the best experience both in a fraternity or sorority and in the academic realm here at the University of Michigan, there are some expectations of what you need to meet, and there are 4 criteria. Councils and individual chapters might have additional criteria that I say below, and the minimum GPA is a common factor for chapters, but it is not in here as the university expectation. And so our first requirement is earned credit hours. So individual students must have 12 post-secondary credits. So this means that AP credits don't count, that any that you've taken, maybe if you were dual enrolled with high school and a community college or something like that, those don't count. It has to be once you've gotten your degree from high school, 12 credits. Now transfer credits do, if you transferred institutions, that would count. Then our next one is enrollment status. You have to be enrolled at the University of Michigan. This is a pretty easy one. Sometimes it gets tricky, but most of us have that. And good standing. Good standing is through our accountability or conduct office, OSCR, and that just means you don't have any conduct currently. No, it just doesn't mean like you got in trouble in the residence hall. You're still in good standing on that. It means you have some further issue. Academic good standing is also one, which means you have to have a set GPA by your college. So it depends which college you are. It might change your academic standing. And then our last one should be the easiest one, but at times can be a little challenging, is the FSL education module. So what we hope is that all of the individuals that come join our community have a base foundation on what our community is, what our history is, and what they're getting into and what they're committing to. We want you to be really upfront and understand that. And so you have to get a certain 100%, as you see on that score or on that module. Here is the online verification. You'll go online, education module, start your eligibility. If it says ineligible, connect with us and we can help on why. And then pay attention to dates and deadlines. Shannon will go into some of that just a minute, but please be aware every council has different ones. And so if you ever have any questions, just email us, right? We have a staff of 7 here to reach out. And then we talked about the benefits of being affiliated. We've alluded to disaffiliated chapters. Disaffiliated chapters are ones that are functioning here in the Ann Arbor area. They might have houses, they might host social gatherings, they might seem like a typical fraternity or sorority. Most of them, they're all right now fraternities that are functioning, but we want to be really careful and make sure that bring to light those that aren't under our umbrella. That limits our ability to help out in some situations. They don't get the resources, and at times it may lead to more risk. So our disaffiliated voluntarily, ones that just chose to leave themselves, are Alpha Epsilon Pi, Delta Chi, and Pi Kappa Phi. So those individuals or those chapters just chose to leave. Then there are some that were removed for misconduct, but their headquarters, the disaffiliated organizations, their headquarters still support them. That's the big difference. Alpha Sigma Phi, Delta Upsilon, Lambda Phi Epsilon, and Sigma Chi. They are not under our umbrella. Their headquarters still support them, but they are not part of our office. And so we just want to be really transparent there. Now, as I said, my position is over the accountability in the office, so I work with this often. Our chapter statuses change often, many times a month. So we wanted to give you this page. It's on our website. It's our chapter status page. If you go to fsl.umich, just put chapter status, it'll come up. It says everyone that's removed or suspended for misconduct by our university. It says if they're removed or suspended for misconduct by the headquarters, any status changes by a chapter headquarters, and voluntary disaffiliated. So before you join a chapter or you look at, making a connection with a chapter, please go to that page, look at what it says. If you're not sure about it, please reach out to our office. We can talk through, right? We're not saying these other chapters are harmful or not, but we can provide some context. And we do say those that are removed for misconduct, we would not suggest necessarily joining, just based on, we as a university have previously said it is safest if they close or not be part of our community for a set amount of time. And the amount of time is all on the website, so you can see all of that information very clearly. Now I've talked about what chapters there are out there and what you should think about in values. Shannon is going to help us on how to join, what recruitment and intake should look like, so you can be a part of our community come the fall.
Wonderful. Thanks, Christy. So as she mentioned, this part of the presentation is really going to talk about all the different pathways to membership, sometimes called recruitment, sometimes called membership intake. And so we'll go through the ins and outs of that now. So as I mentioned, each council and chapters within each council, we talked about the 4 councils initially, all have different ways that students can become part of the organizations. Some of them are very formalized processes coordinated by the councils. Some of them are more casual, and some of them are conducted chapter by chapter. And coming up, we'll talk through the different processes at a high level for each council, just so you can do your research ahead of time to know what the processes look like. I also want to name that even though there's eligibility criteria and first-year students won't be able to join till second semester if they meet the criteria, there are chapters that conduct membership intake and recruitment year-round, and you can join fraternities and sororities well beyond your freshman year. And so I just wanted to name that also as we go through the presentation. So intake and membership recruitment for MGC and NPHC. So both MGC and NPHC don't have a formalized council-driven process for recruitment. So what that means is that each chapter conducts their own process on an individual level. Sometimes they conduct it in the fall semester, sometimes winter semester, sometimes both semesters, but it's very individualized per the organization. NPHC does hold an initial NPHC week event in September. It's a series of cool things to learn more about the council, and there are opportunities to engage with chapters at that programming. Some chapters will wait until winter 23 to conduct membership intake or recruitment. And so the best way to stay in the loop is to follow individual chapters on Instagram, attend the open events that they plan for campus. And you can also, I think on the next slide, it shows that we have individual pages for MGC and NPHC on our website, so you can see more about the chapters that are here. We also have a contact list, and so folks are welcome to contact chapters directly to learn more as well. And so if you're considering membership in either an MGC fraternity and sorority or an NPHC fraternity or sorority, you're really going to want to look individually at the organizations. And if you're not sure where to go, you can always start with our office and we'd be happy to direct you. And then formal recruitment is, we have processes in Panhel and IFC that are more coordinated by the councils. The big primary recruitments for Panhel and IFC do take place in the winter semester after the majority of first year students are eligible to join. So what our office does is help coordinate the dates and the programming, and we support the councils in planning of their recruitment processes. IFC and Panhel processes are both formalized in the winter, but they look very different. And so just from a general overview, all students must meet our eligibility the semester they want to go through recruitment in order to pursue the process. The Panhellenic Association sororities have a registration that's required to participate, and that registration will open October 1st and close December 15th. And so it's really important, if somebody is considering going through Panhellenic primary recruitment, that they register by that deadline. IFC will have a registration for winter semester. It'll open October 1st, but that deadline is a lot more fluid. And throughout these processes, you'll start by meeting multiple chapters, and then you get narrowed down the further you go in the process. And then Panhel and IFC also have more informal recruitment processes as well. So Panhellenic has a process called continuous open bidding, or COB, and that occurs in the fall semester for eligible students and then in the winter semester after primary recruitment. It's not coordinated in the same way primary recruitment is. It's very much driven by individual chapters, and our website will have some information. You can follow the Instagram as well. At the end of the presentation, we have a slide with all the councils and our office Instagram handles, so you can stay in the loop with everything. And then IFC does a more informal recruitment in the fall as well. All these recruitment processes for Panhel and IFC are coordinated in conjunction with us. But the big thing to remember is that students must meet the eligibility requirements to participate in recruitment. Before recruitment and intake begin, I know we've talked throughout this presentation about the values of our organizations and what they're really about. And joining a fraternity and sorority is really different than joining any other type of organization on campus. Our organizations are lifelong. They ask for a really big commitment from us, and there are lots of benefits. There are so many stories of people who have grown and developed and can attribute a lot of good things in their lives to their affiliation, but it's a serious commitment. And so before the processes begin, we really encourage you to think about the academic commitments, the time commitment, the financial obligations. Some of that information is posted on our website, but through the joining process, no matter which council or which chapter you're looking at, the organization should be able to tell you about the financial obligations, the membership requirements, and what that commitment looks like. Joining a fraternity or sorority can be a really big part of your undergraduate experience, but like I said, it really carries lifelong. So just do a lot of research and consideration before the processes begin. The one other thing that we did want to mention as you're considering membership in some of our organizations is that almost all of the Pan-Hellenic chapters and the IFC fraternities have an official chapter facility where many members live together. Often the housing is filled by newer members, but that really varies by chapter. And we know that as soon as students come to campus, there's going to be a lot of peer pressure to sign leases for the following year. But living in a fraternity or sorority house is often a requirement after you join. And so what we want to do is assure you that there's plenty of time to sign a lease after primary recruitment and formal recruitment for IFC take place in January. And so definitely take your time. Some of the next slides talk a little bit about our partnership. Numerous units partner with the Dean of Students Office for a program called Take Time Before You Sign. There's a lot of education and information out there so that you can weigh your options, because students will hear that you have to sign immediately. And we just want to assure you that you don't have to sign immediately and that there's lots of resources here to help. And so please note, if you are even slightly considering a fraternity or sorority with a facility, you are going to want to wait to sign a lease till after recruitment. There's a few more pieces of information about that in the presentation. I just wanted to say too, there are lots of benefits to living in a chapter facility. You'll never have another experience quite like it. There is a camaraderie and a bond that really comes with living with your brothers and sisters. And a lot of times the rates are comparable to residence hall rates, which I think is really great from that perspective. So just wanted to make those notes. I know it's a lot to consider. And then our website will continue to have housing information, and so will the Instagram handles. So, well, the Instagram, so that you can learn more.
So yeah, we would welcome certainly anyone to ask any questions that you might have, and certainly each individual, at least on the panel, we can take questions as needed. I see in the chat also there was a question about still wanting some understanding around the differences between the different councils. And certainly I linked in that answer, a link out to our website that really goes a lot more in detail around the differences and really the organizations that make up the council, which is really what defines a lot of the councils. But to recap, you was hearing us use these acronyms, IFC, MGC, NPHC, and Panhel. It really boils down to really our IFC and our Panhellenic group, if you want to differentiate, are our groups that are, as I mentioned earlier, historically white, but also more distinctly groups that have recognized chapter housing facilities. So those two councils do have recognized chapter housing facilities in some of our larger organizations. And our cultural-based organizations, which are organizations that really celebrate various different ethnic and cultural and racial identities, are made up of, in our MGC and NPHC organizations, MGC and NPHC, which are both fraternities and sororities. So I hope that answered your question. And I did link in the Q&A, the website to our website, the link to our website that goes a little bit more in depth about those. Any other questions that would be helpful?
Yeah, and if I could just follow to what Travis was saying, we have our 4 councils. There's more information in the chat, and each of the fraternities and sororities have some common values. So academic excellence is really important. Finding people who can help mentor you is a big part of our organizations. Really active engagement in the Ann Arbor and greater communities is central to what we do. All organizations have local and national causes that they support. So fraternities and sororities really help give you a home away from home and a network that carries you not only while you're at Michigan, but beyond that. We have so many students who this place feels so big, and when they join their organization, they get introduced to other student organizations. They have older students who help guide them on what classes they really loved or if they should study abroad or not. And so learning more about each council is important because the histories of the organizations vary, but just wanted to name that all of the groups do engage in different levels of community service, philanthropic work, educational programming, leadership development, and there are some fun twists along the way as well.
Shannon, if I might, I see I'm going to ask you to also weigh in on this next question, which was talking about any types of financial aid or scholarships for Greek life. If you could talk about that, that'd be great.
Sure, absolutely. So individual chapters may have, they set their dues and fees a lot of times in conjunction with their national organizations. And so that's really handled at the individual level. Right now, we don't have, what I would say is that it's important, it would be good to ask when you're looking at chapters if they have scholarship programs or if they have payment plans. Some of the organizations do have endowed scholarships that we help run as well, and many of them also have scholarships that members can apply for through through their educational foundations as well. We continuously work to compile that information, but it's definitely a good question to ask as you're looking at organizations.
So certainly wanted to be able to answer any other questions folks have. So is there any other questions folks have that could be helpful for us to answer here? Someone said they have more questions and answers, so we certainly want to welcome that as well.
And I also want to name too that, we do staff our office during the summer. And so if folks want to talk with us individually, we're happy to answer questions that way as well. And we're also going to have opportunities throughout the fall semester to engage with stakeholders. I think Travis is going to talk about one of the big upcoming ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll leave us with this here. We have a few different opportunities here for you to connect with our office. So certainly here, we're inviting any students, right, to welcome to Michigan events that'll be coming up right at the beginning of the academic year. But certainly the Picture Yourself at Michigan event is an event that we'll be hosting as a part of University Welcome Week. And that's on Sunday, September 4th from 6:30 to 8:30 at Palmer Courts. And so we certainly want to invite any student or anyone to come out to that event to meet our student leaders, to meet our chapters leaders, to meet our office staff who will also be there as well. So and we can certainly answer any questions, but certainly also want to echo what Shannon mentioned. Even between now and then, the University Fraternity Sorority Life office is open Monday through Fridays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And so if you wanted to reach out and call the office at any point to ask any questions that might come up between now and then, we certainly would welcome that as well.
I have a few more questions come up in the chat. So Shannon, COB, Shannon's going to be our resident, like answer all the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So COB begins the first week of classes. We won't know which sororities are participating until Wednesday, August 31st, because we have to do some behind the scenes work on our end. Because that's a very chapter driven process, they don't all publicize what they're doing. And so what we do is we offer an interest form on our website that people can fill out, and then we share that information with the chapters. Students are also welcome to contact chapters directly and to reach out to Panhellenic as well, and they can help guide people in the right direction. We are also talking about having a Diag Day on the 31st, which will be publicized, and we're going to invite the chapters who have spaces to that event as well. So I would say, in short, check out the website and Instagram, and we'll do our best to answer questions ahead of time. And I'm always happy to answer questions in the office about COB or anything else. So please don't hesitate to contact us if more questions come up.
Excellent. Well, seems like we have some questions in the chat answered here, but I certainly want to again thank all of you for attending today, this evening. And as Shannon mentioned, and as has been repeated several times, on the screen here is the Fraternity Sorority Life website, but also our phone number to our office and also our general email. Please do not hesitate to reach out via email or via that phone number at any point as you are coming up closer to the fall quarter or semester and you're maybe thinking about what it means to find belonging at the University of Michigan. We hope Fraternity Sorority Life will be that space that you will continue to explore a place and a home away from home for you. Again, thank you so much for your time today, and we appreciate all that you do, and go blue.